If you have TPS and you're scrolling through social media seeing TPS is ending, your status is revoked, you must leave now. Stop. Don't pack a bag. Don't quit your job, because that's not what the law actually says. In this video, I'll break down the real federal court protections and what's truly happening with TPS right now. If you are a TPS holder right now, if you have been lying awake at night scrolling through social media, seeing headlines that scream TPS is ending, or posts claiming your status is already revoked, if your family is terrified, your employer is confused, and you feel like your entire life in the United States is hanging by a thread because of conflicting information you cannot verify, pause. Take a breath. Put your phone down for a moment and listen carefully. Because the reality of what is happening with TPS in the law and in the federal courts is often very different from what viral posts and scary thumbnails are suggesting. There are legal protections and procedures in place. There are federal court actions that have slowed down or stopped sudden terminations in the past. And there are official steps the government is required to take before your status can change. You deserve to understand those protections clearly, in plain language, so you can make decisions based on facts, not fear. That is exactly what this video will give you. A detailed, legally grounded explanation of where TPS stands, how court cases affect you, and what you should and should not be doing right now. Welcome back to Immigration Updates Hub. This channel is dedicated to providing accurate, verified, and legally grounded immigration information, so you can cut through the noise and focus on what actually matters for your life and your family. Before we dive in, nothing in this video is personal legal advice. It is general education based on publicly available information. Your specific situation might require a different strategy, so always consult a qualified immigration attorney for one-on-one guidance. Now, let's build this up, step by step. 1. What TPS actually is and what it is not. To really understand the current TPS situation, you first need a clear picture of what temporary protected status is under U.S. immigration law. TPS, temporary protected status, is a humanitarian protection created by Congress under the Immigration and Nationality Act, ANA. It allows nationals of certain countries to stay and work legally in the United States when there is ongoing armed conflict, like a civil war, there has been a major natural disaster, like an earthquake, hurricane, or epidemic, or there are other extraordinary and temporary conditions that make safe return impossible or extremely dangerous. Key points about TPS. 1. TPS is temporary by design. It is granted for limited periods, often 6, 12, or 18 months at a time, and DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, must decide whether to extend, redesignate, or terminate that protection. 2. TPS does not automatically lead to a green card. TPS gives you lawful status, work authorization, and protection from deportation while it is in effect, but it is not in itself a direct path to permanent residence. However, in some cases, TPS can interact with other immigration options, such as family petitions or employment sponsorship, in ways that may help. More on that later. 3. TPS gives 3 core benefits while valid. Protection from removal. You cannot lawfully be deported simply for lacking status. Authorization to work legally, usually via an employment authorization document. EAD. The possibility to request travel authorization, advance parole in certain cases. 4. TPS is country-specific. DHS designates a country for TPS. Only people from that country who meet the specific eligibility criteria and deadlines for that designation can receive TPS. Countries that have been designated for TPS in recent years include, among others, El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Sudan, Venezuela, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Myanmar, Burma, Yemen, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, and more. Hundreds of thousands of people, many of whom have lived in the United States for 10, 20, or even 30 years, rely on this protection. 2. How TPS is created, extended, and ended. Understanding the process is crucial because TPS does not need to begin or end based on rumors, press conferences, or social media. Here is how it works legally. 1. Designation. DHS, through the Secretary of Homeland Security, decides that a country qualifies for TPS based on conditions there. This decision is published in the Federal Register, which is the official government publication for legal notices and rules. 2. Extension or redesignation. Extension keeps TPS in place for people who already have it for a new period, for example, another 18 months. Redesignation not only extends TPS for current holders, but also opens a new window for additional people from that country who meet the updated residence and physical presence dates to apply. Both of these actions are also published as official like Federal Register notices, with exact dates, re-registration periods, information about automatic EAD extensions, if any. 3. Termination. DHS may decide that conditions in a country have improved enough to end TPS. This decision must be published in the Federal Register. The notice includes an effective termination date and usually a grace or wind-down period. TPS does not disappear the next day. So, legally speaking, TPS cannot end because of a tweet, a speech, or a leaked memo. It must go through a formal decision and a Federal Register notice. That notice is what controls your deadlines. Not headlines, not rumors. 3. How federal courts have protected TPS holders. Now we get to the part that creates the most confusion and the most protection. Federal court actions. In recent years, especially under previous administrations, DHS announced that it would terminate TPS for several countries, including El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Sudan. Those termination decisions were not simply accepted, they were challenged in federal court by TPS holders and advocacy organizations. The lawsuits argued things like the terminations were not properly justified under the law, the government failed to consider all relevant evidence. The decisions were influenced by improper or discriminatory factors. In response, several federal courts issued powerful tools called preliminary injunctions and stays of termination. Let's break those down in simple terms. 1. Preliminary injunction. This is a court order that temporarily blocks the government from enforcing a decision, like terminating TPS, while the lawsuit is still being decided. Preliminary means it's not the final word on the lawsuit, but it does protect people in the meantime. 2. Stay. A stay essentially freezes the situation. In the TPS context, it has meant that TPS continues and the announced termination date does not take effect while the case is pending. What this has meant in practice? For years, even though DHS announced termination dates for some countries, those terminations did not actually go into effect because courts paused them. During those periods, TPS holders kept their status, work authorization continued, USCIS continued to accept re-registrations, and in many instances, DHS automatically extended EADs through Federal Register notices. Later, as administrations changed, DHS often chose to extend TPS again through new legal decisions, and in some cases, redesignate main countries for TPS, giving protections beyond what the court orders alone required. The important message here: TPS has not been decided by one speech or one memo. It has been shaped by a combination of official DHS actions, and federal court protections. This is why things can feel very confusing. You may hear about court cases, appeals, settlements, and DHS announcements, often at the same time. 4. What DHS appeals actually mean. You may hear that DHS has appealed a decision in a TPS case, and people instantly panic thinking, appeal status, protection's gone. That is usually how it works. Here's how appeals fit into the picture. 1. If a federal district court, the trial-level federal court, issues a preliminary injunction blocking a TPS termination, DHS has the right to appeal that ruling to a higher court, the Court of Appeals. 2. Filing an appeal does not automatically end the injunction. In many cases, the injunction remains in place while the appeal is being decided. It can take many months or even years for an appeal to fully resolve. 3. The appeals court can uphold the injunction, narrow it, reverse it, or send the case back for more proceedings. Even when a court eventually rules against TPS holders, changes do not take effect overnight. DHS still must decide how to respond. DHS must still publish Federal Register notices explaining what will happen next and when. There is almost always a window of time, a wind-down period, before any termination actually becomes effective. So when you hear DHS appealed or the court issued a new ruling, remember, that news is important and worth tracking. But it does not mean that your TPS or work permit disappeared that same day. 5. The current TPS landscape, continuity and uncertainty. As of the most recent publicly available information, up to late 2024, the general pattern with TPS has been continuity of protection. For many long-standing TPS countries, new designations and redesignations. For countries facing recent crises and ongoing legal and political uncertainty about what will happen in the future. Countries such as El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Sudan, Venezuela, Ukraine, and others have seen multiple life extensions of TPS over the years, and in some cases, redesignations that expand who can qualify. Additionally, newer designations, like for Afghanistan, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Myanmar, and Ukraine, have brought TPS protection to people fleeing newer conflicts and disasters. However, court cases related to earlier termination attempts, appeals by DHS or by plaintiffs, and policy changes between administrations mean that the legal situation remains fluid. The key point for you is this: TPS designations and extensions are still in effect for many countries. Court actions have helped prevent sudden loss of protection. Any major change will almost always be accompanied by Federal Register notices, official USCIS guidance, and usually a significant lead time before it actually affects your day-to-day life. 6. What this means for your status right now. If you currently have TPS and you have been maintaining it correctly, by re-registering during each required period, keeping your address updated with USCIS, renewing or benefiting from automatic extensions of your work permit, then you still have lawful status as a TPS holder for as long as your country's designation remains in effect. This means your TPS has not been silently revoked because of a headline. Your EAD work permit remains valid through its printed expiration date, and in many cases beyond that date if there is an automatic extension announced in the Federal Register. USCIS often issues automatic EAD extensions for TPS holders when a TPS designation is extended, re-registration processing backlogs are expected, or litigation is ongoing and the government wants to avoid unnecessary gaps. In such cases, the Federal Register notice and USCIS website will clearly say things like EADs for TPS holders from X country with category A12 or C19 and expiration date Y are automatically extended until Z date. For you, that means your physical EAD card may show an old expiration date, but legally it may still be valid because of an automatic extension. You should print and keep a copy of the relevant Federal Register notice with your documents. Show that notice to your employer if there are questions about your ability to work. 7. What you should be doing right now as a TPS holder. Let's move from big picture law to practical steps. Here are specific actions you should be taking if you hold TPS. 1. Re-register on time, every single time. Whenever DHS extends TPS for your country, USCIS will announce a re-registration period. This is usually a 60-day or 90-day window. If you miss that window, you risk losing TPS even if the designation itself continues. If you did miss a re-registration period, do not ignore it. In some circumstances, USCIS may accept late re-registration with good cause. That is a delicate situation where you should immediately consult a licensed immigration attorney or a reputable legal service provider. 2. Watch your EAD, work permit dates, and check for automatic extensions. Look at the card expires date, the category code, often A12 or C19 for TPS, any automatic extension information in the Federal Register, or on the USCIS TPS webpage for your country. Many employers don't understand TPS automatic extensions, so be prepared to show them your EAD, the Federal Register notice explaining the extension. 3. Keep all your documents organized and backed up. Maintain a physical folder and a digital folder, scans or photos with every form, I-821 and I-765 you have ever filed for TPS and work authorization, all approval notices, I-797, copies of your EADs front and back, your I-94 if applicable, your passport and any travel documents or advance parole documents, Federal Register notices relevant to your country, and EAD automatic extensions. This will help you with re-registration, job changes, future immigration filings, and any consultation with an attorney. 4. Be extremely careful about travel outside the U.S. TPS holders who want or need to travel outside the United States generally must apply for and receive advance parole, Form I-131, before departing, and understand that travel always carries some risk. Traveling without advance parole can result in abandonment of TPS, trigger bars to re-entry, complicate any future immigration options you might have. Even with advance parole, you should talk to a qualified attorney before traveling, especially if you have any criminal history, prior deportation orders, unlawful presence issues, or other immigration violations. 5. If you have any criminal record, get legal advice immediately. Even seemingly minor issues like old misdemeanors, DUIs, or shoplifting can affect TPS. TPS has specific rules about certain convictions and 2 misdemeanors in the U.S., and never assume that it's old or it was expunged means it doesn't matter. Get a copy of your complete criminal record and have an immigration experienced attorney review it. 6. Explore other more permanent immigration options while you still have TPS. TPS is temporary by nature. It can last for many years, as we've seen, but it is not guaranteed forever. While you still have protection, it may be wise to explore whether you qualify for a family-based green card through a U.S. citizen spouse, parent, or child, an employment-based option, asylum, withholding of removal or protection under the Convention Against Torture if you fear return, special immigrant juvenile status for certain minors, VAWA self-petition for victims of qualifying domestic abuse, U or T visas for certain crime or trafficking victims, other humanitarian programs. Very important. The rules for how TPS interacts with adjustment of status, getting a green card inside the U.S., vary by situation and even by court jurisdiction. Some federal courts treat TPS as an admission for purposes of adjusting status, others do not. Advance parole travel and reentry can also affect this analysis. This is highly case-specific. So you should absolutely consult a knowledgeable immigration attorney if you are exploring these paths. 7. Keep your address updated with USCIS. If you move, you must file an AR-11 change of address with USCIS, usually within 10 days. This can often be done online. If USCIS sends a notice to your old address and you don't receive it, you could miss a re-registration deadline, a request for evidence, RFE, or even an interview or hearing. 8. Protect yourself from scams and unlicensed immigration consultants. TPS situations, especially during times of fear, attract scammers and notarios who promise guaranteed green cards, claim they have inside connections at USCIS, Charge high fees for things you could do yourself or with legitimate help. Only get legal advice from licensed attorneys or accredited representatives of recognized organizations, for example, organizations recognized by the Department of Justice. Ask to see credentials. If they refuse, walk away. 9. Take care of your mental health and support network. Living in temporary status, dealing with headlines and legal uncertainty is emotionally exhausting. Stay connected with trusted community organizations, churches, mosques, or support groups. Talk to people who share verified information, not just rumors. Consider speaking with a mental health professional if anxiety or stress is overwhelming. 10. If you are an employer of TPS holders, learn the rules. Employers often get confused when EADs show an expired date on the card, but the law automatically extends them through a Federal Register notice. If you are an employer, review the USCIS I-9 Employer Handbook. Look at USCIS's TPS web pages and the Federal Register notices. Understand that refusing to accept a valid, automatically extended EAD can create legal problems for your company. 8. Myths versus facts about TPS. Let's address some of the most common myths you may see online and replace them with facts. Myth 1. TPS is ending immediately. You must leave the country now. Fact. TPS cannot end immediately without a formal DHS decision and an official Federal Register notice with an effective date. Court cases and appeals often delay or block terminations. Even when a termination is finalized, there is usually a wind-down period, not an overnight cutoff. Myth 2. USCIS is revoking all TPS and work permits right now. Fact. There has been no blanket revocation of all TPS or EADs. Changes to TPS are made, country by country, through formal notices. If your TPS is valid and you have complied with re-registration requirements, your protection remains in place until your country's TPS designation actually ends. Myth 3. If TPS ends, you will be deported the next day. Fact. If TPS for your country is ever terminated, your TPS-based protection ends on the termination date. You will no longer have TPS-based work authorization. Oh, but you are not automatically deported the next day. DHS must still go through the legal process to remove someone from the U.S., usually involving immigration court unless there is a prior order. Also, if you have another pending immigration case, asylum, family petition, etc., another form of protection, those may continue even if TPS ends. Myth 4. TPS automatically turns into a green card if you stay long enough. Fact. TPS is not a direct path to a green card, no matter how many years you have had it. However, TPS can sometimes help you become eligible for a green card through another category, depending on your situation and where you live. For example, in some parts of the U.S., courts have held that TPS counts as an admission for family-based green cards. In other places, courts have not. This is nuanced. Do not rely on a blanket statement from a friend or a random post. Get real legal advice. Myth 5. You should leave the U.S. now before things get worse, or you'll be punished later. Fact. Leaving the U.S. without proper planning can trigger re-entry bars, complicate any future ability to return lawfully, result in abandonment of TPS status. Never self-deport out of panic based only on rumors. Before making major decisions like leaving the country, talk to a qualified immigration lawyer who understands your full history. 9. How to stay truly informed, not misled. The biggest threat to many TPS holders today is not only legal change, it is misinformation. Here is how to protect yourself. 1. Rely on official government sources for core facts. USCIS website, especially the TPS page for your country. Department of Homeland Security announcements. Federal Register. Notices. You can search Federal Register TPS online. 2. Use reputable legal and advocacy organizations. Nationally known immigrant rights groups, nonprofit legal clinics, organizations recognized by the Department of Justice for providing immigration services. 3. Use independent news and channels like this one thoughtfully. Good channels and journalists will cite official sources, clarify what is confirmed and what is still proposed or in litigation, avoid sensationalism. Whenever you hear something alarming, cross-check it against USCIS and the Federal Register. Look for whether any official notice has been published. 4. Check dates on all information. A video from 2 years ago may no longer reflect current law. Articles and posts must be read with their publication date in mind. Here on Immigration Updates Hub, the commitment is to base updates on official documents and credible reports. Clearly distinguish between what is in effect now, what is proposed, what is being challenged in court. 10. Final thoughts. Vigilance, not panic. Living under TPS is emotionally heavy. You build a life, career, family, and community here, while constantly being reminded that your legal status is called temporary. Court cases, political debates, and changing policies only add to that stress. The fear you and your family feel is completely understandable, but here is what you should carry with you after this video. Federal courts have played a major role in protecting TPS holders by blocking or delaying sudden terminations. DHS extensions and redesignations have continued protection for many countries. Appeals and new court decisions take time. Legal changes do not happen in a single night. Nothing replaces closely following official sources, staying fully compliant with all USCIS requirements, and getting personalized legal advice. When your situation is complicated, you have not lost your status because of a rumor. You have not been ordered to leave the country just because of a headline. What you do need to do is stay calm, stay informed, stay organized, stay connected to accurate sources of information and qualified legal help. If you found this explanation helpful and you want ongoing fact-checked updates on TPS, green cards, visas, work authorization, student and worker status, and more, make sure you subscribe to Immigration Updates Hub so you don't miss future videos as the situation develops. Share this video with anyone you know who has TPS and is scared or confused right now. Accurate information is one of the most powerful protections we can give each other. If you have specific questions about TPS for your country, or about how TPS might interact with other immigration options, leave them in the comments. Your questions help shape future videos on this channel. And remember one last time, this video is general educational information. It is not as individual legal advice. For advice about your unique situation, especially if you have missed a re-registration, have a criminal record, or are considering travel or other immigration options, please consult a licensed immigration attorney or a qualified accredited representative. Always verify urgent claims through official government sources before making big decisions. Thank you for watching Immigration Updates Hub. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay hopeful. Take care of yourselves and your families.